Hi everybody, my name is Jen and I make videos about the law on this lovely channel, Law Hero. And if you haven't already done so, please subscribe for legal news all the time. So today I have something that is applicable to everybody. It's an interview with some in-house counsel. Now, just to be clear, some people tune out when I say in-house counsel because they think it's not applicable to them. They think, oh, I just want to be a solicitor in a law firm, a lawyer in a law firm, and in-house doesn't interest me. I used to think like that. I used to think that in-house was something I would never do and that I was private practice for life. But your life changes. And you make decisions based on things that happen in your life and your preferences, and you cannot rule anything out. But more than anything, the majority, 98% of people come from private practice and then go in-house. So it only makes sense that when senior in-house lawyers speak, that we all have something to learn from them. And I found an extremely interesting article on In-House Lawyer magazine that talks about not only competencies of people they're looking for, but how the nature of the role has changed, but actually what they're saying is applicable to anyone who is applying for a job in a law firm or indeed in law generally. So the first question that was asked is, how has the role changed and how will it be different? And the people in this interview who answered said that it's not good enough to be a specialist anymore or a good manager of people. You need to be able to have a strategic conversation at board level. And this harks back to the old commercial awareness. You can't just hide behind your lawyer position anymore and go, oh no, I can't deal with that because I'm a lawyer. I'm not good with numbers. I don't understand the economy. That's not a legal remit, so I'm not going to say anything. Unfortunately, because legal risk is so inherent in every move a business makes, you also need to be able to think strategically on behalf of the business. And I think that's very interesting. So the next area to discuss is where the legal counsel, in-house legal counsel is going to come from. And they have this rather good debate, which I'm going to summarize for you. So basically the premise is that if you come from private practice, you work on a very niche area. So for example, like PIT or finance being debt capital markets. And what that does is it's almost like a conveyor belt that you get so good at doing the same thing over and over again. You become an expert in it and you become very, very deeply entrenched in one area of law. But of course, this is at odds with what a general counsel needs to do. But of course, many people choose to change their career due to family commitments, or, you know, they just want to have more of a work-life balance. And that's at odds at what's required from them as a general counsel, because as they make the argument here, if you go in-house where there's a big team of lawyers, we'll say 20 people, and you go in as a specialist, we'll say to like Google, that's okay because you're known as like the privacy person or as the property person and you can keep going as you had. But if you go to a client where there's a small legal team, you're not going to be the privacy lawyer anymore or the property lawyer anymore. You're going to have to do a whole host of things which may be outside your comfort zone, and that isn't necessarily taught to people in law firms. It's called adaptability and resilience, and you only learn that as time goes on. For example, the in-house counsel from Microsoft here said that he wants to go for people who are not traditional, as in he wants to find people who have struggled a little bit, and I find that really interesting. And that to me is a very honest thing to say, and that's more in line with diversity and inclusion than, you know, just hiring females, in my opinion. I think diversity and inclusion includes people from diverse backgrounds, as in they're not the cookie cutter, trained in a big law firm, worked there for a few years and went in-house. I think it's good to see a bit of, you know, people who've faced adversity in their career, be it they've been knocked down and they got back up again. I think that's a really good sign of somebody's character, and so does the guy from Microsoft. The other thing which is really interesting, which they noticed that a lot of repetitive tasks that trainees used to do which definitely helped them to learn, due diligence being a case in point, will now be done by machines. Law firms have not changed their model. They are taking fewer trainees, so their internal business model still holds, but overall it does not necessarily work in terms of training. I think it's really interesting that they picked up on that. So they're saying in-house, we are increasingly faced with the choice of a shrinking pool of highly paid individuals or starting to train them ourselves. We have trainees and have had some very good results, and we've seen this with some of the very big companies in Ireland. Some of the state companies are starting to train people in-house because in their in-house departments they have litigation, property, commercial contracts. They might even have some finance, and that covers all the bases that is needed by the Law Society to be a trainee. So it is very interesting that it's not necessarily a law firm where you have to get your training. So the in-house counsel from Adobe, so Adobe Acrobat, said, "My experience is to hire often the unusual candidate who gives you something in the interview that you do not see in 90% of the other candidates. It is often the one who will surprise you in the long term more and will deliver the results you really want to see. For example, believing in someone who does not have the straightforward background but has learned law by some deviation. All that experience can ultimately be what pays off later on." Again, this is interesting that they're alluding to this, that they're not looking for the cookie cutter lawyer. And when people come to me for milk round mastery, a lot of the time some of them have a vast experience when it comes to sales, as in they've worked in shops, department stores, or they've worked in catering, hotels, basically retail and the hospitality sectors, and they think that that kind of experience is not applicable, but it really is. And you'll see that kind of business acumen will stand to you, especially in-house. If I look at who gets into our organization, it is the ones who have to regularly make judgment calls, spend time on stakeholder management, and with front-end business teams who typically have greater opportunity to broaden and hone their interpersonal skills, but I feel it could be ingrained into the training more fundamentally. Now, I also find this sentence fascinating because what he's saying is that you don't have the blanket of being a lawyer. You are forced to give a view. You can't just say, oh, you could go with A, you could go with B, you could go with C, but at the end of the day, it's up to you. No, you actually have to make a decision. You have to put your neck out a bit, and you have to learn how to negotiate internally. And that really develops your negotiation skills and your interpersonal skills. And again, this is the kind of thing they're saying that trainees are lacking when they're coming out of law firms. And I would totally agree with that. You just don't get that kind of exposure to clients as a trainee or a junior associate. The question they asked them was, okay, if emotional intelligence is so important, how did you guys get emotional intelligence? So they all agree that emotional intelligence is got intuitively, and I would agree to an extent, but there's actually a lot of things you can learn. There's a lot of different online resources that will show you how to approach yourself critically, find out where your strengths and weaknesses are, and where you can make up time. I feel for the people for whom it does not come naturally. They need help, and I do not think the current training is structured enough to help them this way. I went to an aspiring solicitors event and it was fascinating. There was a chap from one big bank who says, guys, get a job in a burger bar, because when you are older, customer service skills will be more important and a competitive advantage. And again, I've been harping on for years that being a lawyer, it's not just knowing the law, it's also knowing how to sell legal services, because at the end of the day, you have to sell something, and our product is our knowledge. And if you can't sell, then you're never going to make any money, no matter how much law you know. So yeah, then he talks about himself. He says, the reason I'm probably doing better now than when I started out is because of interpersonal skills. Presenting, setting future direction, project management, stakeholder management, and they were not valued where I trained. So it's very, very honest. So then they talk about in-house. There's a new trend where in-house teams are growing and in-house lawyers are not relying on external counsel as much. and they talk about, basically it's a budgeting thing, and that also the role of the lawyer internally is changing. So now they're talking about the mind shift in in-house lawyers, and I personally totally agree with everything they say here. They said, I wish we did not have to refer to ourselves as in-house legal, because we do not have in-house HR or in-house finance. We are business partners. There is this whole concept of in-house legal, but you are part of the business. It comes down to the approach that your general counsel takes. Are you a business partner? Are you purely compliance? My view is that a far more rewarding and engaging role is to be a genuine business partner. Therefore, why do you need to differentiate yourself from other functions that are supporting and helping the business achieve its objectives? Now, the other interesting thing they talk about is fintech, and that a lot of companies starting out are starting to hire a lawyer earlier. And I have also personally seen this in the Irish market. And I think this is great for lawyers, because what's happening now is companies are being proactive and are hiring a lawyer to assess legal risk, because a legal risk can destroy a business, especially if you don't comply with a regulatory body, or you don't, for example, if you don't file your necessary filings with the company's registration office, you can be struck off, and then all of the goodwill that was subsumed in your entity is gone for nothing. So you might as well put in the money initially. It's like an investment, and that is one of the big part of advice early business owners get, is to get your lawyer first, figure out what you need to do. You can't operate a website without legal advice. It's impossible if you haven't learned the law. It's impossible to run a company without some sort of legal advice. So legal advice internally is sometimes the best way for these companies to go, which is great. But as they say, it means the legal function is becoming just part of everyone's business. So what's happening is it's just becoming another department, the legal department, rather than in-house counsel. So I imagine, and this is kind of the thrust of this article, is that in-house counsel is no longer going to be the way it's going to be labelled. It will just be legal. You just be legal at whichever company, and that will just be seen as another department. So yeah, that was just a short video. I hope you guys learned something from it. I think for me, the emphasis on emotional intelligence when it comes to advising companies and being internal to their workings, I think is something I hadn't really realized, but it makes sense now to me. And yeah, I hope you guys learned something new, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks for watching.